Imagine I handed you $100 right now. Not 1,000, not 10,000, just $100. What would you do with it? Most people would spend it within a few days. A nice dinner, a new pair of shoes, a gadget they don't really need. And within a week, that money would be gone forever. But what if I told you that same $100 could become $100,000? Not through gambling, not through crypto moonshots, not through winning the lottery, but through a process that has created more millionaires than almost any other wealth-building strategy in history. The crazy part? Most people know about this strategy, yet almost nobody follows it long enough to see the results. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how ordinary people can turn a small amount of money into life-changing wealth. And I need you to pay close attention, because the biggest obstacle isn't money. It's psychology. The reason most people never reach six figures has very little to do with their income. In fact, some of the highest earners in the world are broke. At the same time, teachers, nurses, and office workers quietly build wealth year after year. Why? Because they understand a secret that wealthy people learned long ago. Money grows differently than people think. And once you understand this principle, you'll never look at investing the same way again. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why most people never build wealth. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people spend more time planning a vacation than planning their financial future. Think about that. When someone wants to travel, they'll compare hotels, watch videos, read reviews, and build detailed itineraries. But when it comes to money, many people simply hope everything works out. They assume that earning more money will automatically make them wealthy. But history shows something very different. We've all seen people who earn six figures and still struggle financially. We've also seen people with average incomes retire comfortably. The difference isn't income. The difference is behavior. Wealth is not built in giant leaps. It's built through small actions repeated consistently over long periods of time. Unfortunately, consistency isn't exciting. People love dramatic stories. They love hearing about someone who became rich overnight. They love stories about lucky investments that turned a few $1,000s into millions. But those stories are rare. And more importantly, they distract people from the proven path. The real path to wealth is often boring. It involves patience, discipline, and delayed gratification. Three things that modern society actively discourages. Everywhere you look, you're being told to buy now, upgrade now, consume now. But wealth requires a completely different mindset. Wealth says, invest now, wait now, benefit later. And that's where most people fail, not because they're incapable, but because they underestimate the power of time. To understand this, we need to meet two fictional people. Let's call them Alex and Brian. Both are 25 years old, both earn similar salaries, both dream of financial freedom, but they make one different decision. Alex starts investing immediately. Brian decides to wait until he makes more money. After all, he thinks investing small amounts isn't worth it. That decision seems insignificant, but over time it changes everything. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why. Chapter 2. The most powerful force in wealth creation. Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said it or not doesn't matter, because the principle itself is extraordinary. Here's how most people think money grows. You invest $100, you make $10. Now you have $110. Simple. But compound growth works differently. The next year, you're no longer earning returns on $100, you're earning returns on $110, then on $121, then on $133, and the cycle continues. Your money begins producing money, then the money it produces starts producing even more money. Eventually, growth starts accelerating. Imagine rolling a tiny snowball down a hill. At first, it barely changes. You might even think nothing is happening, but as it continues rolling, it gathers more snow. The bigger it gets, the faster it grows. That's exactly how wealth works. The problem is that most people quit during the early stages, the stage where progress looks invisible. And that's tragic, because the biggest rewards come later. Let's go back to Alex and Brian. Alex invests just $200 per month beginning at age 25. Brian waits until age 35 before starting. Both invest the same way, both earn similar returns, but Alex has one advantage: time. And time turns out to be more valuable than money itself. By retirement age, Alex's portfolio is dramatically larger, not because he invested more aggressively,
not because he earned more, simply because he started earlier. This is one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn. The sooner you begin, the less money you need. The longer you wait, the harder wealth becomes. And this principle doesn't just apply to investing. It applies to skills, businesses, relationships, health, anything that compounds over time. The earlier you start, the greater the reward. Chapter 3. The $100 Mindset. Now, let's address something important. Many people hear discussions about investing and immediately think, that's great, but I don't have much money. That's exactly why we're starting with $100. Because the first goal isn't building wealth. The first goal is building identity. Most people think investors are people with lots of money, but that's backwards. Investors become wealthy because they invest, not the other way around. That first $100 isn't about the amount. It's about proving something to yourself. It's evidence. Evidence that you're becoming the kind of person who builds assets instead of liabilities. The amount is almost irrelevant. What matters is the habit. Think about fitness. Nobody becomes healthy because of one workout, but that first workout matters. It creates momentum. It changes how you see yourself. The same thing happens with money. When you invest your first $100, you're sending yourself a powerful message. You're saying, my future matters. And that mindset shift can change your entire financial trajectory. The wealthiest people in the world understand something most people don't. Success is often an identity problem before it's a money problem. If you see yourself as someone who always spends everything, you'll continue spending everything. If you see yourself as someone who builds assets, your decisions begin changing automatically, and those decisions create your future. Chapter 4. The Silent Enemy of Wealth. There's another reason people struggle to reach $100,000. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the most dangerous financial traps ever created. Here's how it works. You get a raise. Your income increases. Instead of investing the difference, you upgrade your lifestyle. A bigger apartment, a newer car, more subscriptions, more expensive vacations. Suddenly, you're earning more than ever, yet your financial situation hasn't improved. In some cases, it's actually worse, because your expenses have grown alongside your income. This creates a cycle that's incredibly difficult to escape. You become dependent on every dollar you earn, and because you're dependent on it, investing becomes harder. The wealthy often do the opposite. When their income rises, they increase investments before increasing spending. They pay themselves first, and that's a crucial distinction. Most people spend first and invest what's left. Wealthy people invest first and spend what's left. It sounds simple, but over decades, this single habit can create an enormous difference in outcomes, because every dollar invested today has years to compound. Every dollar spent today is gone forever, and understanding that trade-off is one of the keys to building real wealth.
Chapter 5. The exact roadmap from $100 to $100,000. Now that we've covered the mindset, let's talk about the actual blueprint. Because motivation without a plan is just entertainment, and the goal of this video isn't to inspire you for a few minutes. The goal is to give you a roadmap you can follow for years. So let's start with a simple question. How does someone realistically go from $100 to $100,000? The answer isn't complicated, but it requires understanding a truth that most people ignore. Your first $100,000 is not built from investment returns alone. It's built from a combination of investing and contributions. Many beginners make the mistake of focusing entirely on returns. They're constantly asking, what stock will double? What crypto will explode? What investment will make me rich? But early on, your contributions matter far more than your returns. Let's imagine two investors. The first spends months searching for the perfect investment. The second spends those same months increasing their monthly investment amount. Guess who usually wins? The second investor. Because when your portfolio is small, your savings rate has a bigger impact than your investment performance. Think of it this way. If you have $500 invested, even a spectacular 20% return only earns you $100. But adding another $500 instantly doubles your portfolio. In the beginning, saving is your superpower. Later, investing becomes your superpower. And understanding the difference is critical. Here's a practical example. Imagine starting with $100, then investing $300 every month. Nothing fancy. No stock picking, no risky bets. Just consistent contributions into a diversified investment portfolio. Month after month, year after year. At first, progress feels painfully slow. After 1 year, you might look at your account and think, that's it? But something important is happening beneath the surface. You're building momentum. You're creating a machine. And eventually, that machine starts producing results on its own. The first stage of wealth building is contribution-driven. The second stage is growth-driven. The third stage is freedom-driven.
Most people never reach stage 2 because they quit during stage 1. They become discouraged by slow progress. They compare themselves to people on social media. They expect dramatic results. And when those results don't appear immediately, they stop. The irony is that they're often closest to success when they give up. Chapter 6. The moment compounding becomes visible. Have you ever planted a tree? For years, it seems like almost nothing is happening. Then suddenly, growth accelerates. Investing works exactly the same way. Imagine your portfolio reaches $10,000. At this point, growth is noticeable but still modest. A 10% gain means approximately $1,000. Nice, but not life-changing. Now imagine your portfolio reaches $50,000. That same 10% gain becomes $5,000 without increasing your effort, without working extra hours, without asking your boss for a raise. Now imagine your portfolio reaches $100,000. A 10% gain becomes $10,000. Think about that. The portfolio starts generating wealth at a pace that would have seemed impossible years earlier. And this is where many investors experience a breakthrough. They realize their money is beginning to work alongside them, not instead of them, alongside them. This distinction matters. Social media often promotes the idea that investing allows you to stop working immediately. For most people, that's unrealistic. The real goal is to build financial strength gradually, to create a situation where your investments contribute meaningfully to your future. And once you cross 6 figures, the game changes, because every percentage point matters more. Every year becomes more powerful. Every contribution compounds faster. This is why financial experts often say, the first $100,000 is the hardest. Not because it's impossible, but because you're building momentum from scratch. After that, the machine begins helping you. Chapter 7. Why most people quit too soon. Let's talk about one of the biggest threats to your financial future: impatience. Modern society trains us to expect immediate results. Food arrives in minutes. Movies stream instantly. Packages show up the next day. We've become accustomed to speed. But wealth doesn't care about your desire for speed. Wealth operates on a different timeline. And that's frustrating, especially during the early years. Imagine investing consistently for 12 months. You check your account. The growth feels small. You expected more. You imagine something dramatic. Instead, the numbers seem ordinary. At that moment, many people begin questioning the process. Maybe investing doesn't work. Maybe they need a different strategy. Maybe they should chase something more exciting. And that's where mistakes begin, because wealth is often lost in the pursuit of shortcuts. People abandon proven systems for speculative opportunities. They trade discipline for excitement. And excitement usually wins in the short term, but discipline wins in the long term. Every single time. Think about the wealthiest investors in history. Most of them didn't get rich overnight. Most accumulated wealth over decades. Not weeks, not months, decades. The challenge is that patience is invisible. Nobody sees your consistency. Nobody applauds your monthly investments. Nobody celebrates your disciplined decisions. But years later, everyone notices the results, and they often assume you got lucky. What they don't see are the thousands of small decisions that created that outcome. The skipped purchases, the consistent investments, the years of discipline. The willingness to stay the course when progress felt slow. Those are the things that create wealth. Chapter 8. The Market Crash Test. Now let's address something every investor eventually experiences: a market decline. At some point, your investments will fall. It's not a possibility, it's a certainty. The market has always experienced periods of fear: recessions, crashes, corrections, economic uncertainty. And when those moments arrive, most people react emotionally. They panic, they sell, they abandon their plans. Then something predictable happens. The market eventually recovers, and they miss the rebound. This cycle repeats over and over throughout history. The investors who build wealth understand something different. They view downturns differently. Instead of seeing lower prices as a disaster, they see them as an opportunity. Think about it. If you love buying things on sale, why would you hate buying investments on sale? Imagine your favorite store announces a 30% discount. Most people would celebrate. But when investments go on sale by 30%, many people panic. The logic doesn't make sense. Yet emotions are powerful. That's why successful investing is often more about behavior than intelligence. You don't need to predict every market movement. You don't need to forecast economic cycles. You don't need to be a financial genius. You need the ability to remain rational when others become emotional. And that skill alone can separate successful investors from unsuccessful ones. Because markets reward patience, not panic. Chapter 9. The wealth equation nobody talks about. People love discussing investment returns, but returns are only one piece of the puzzle. The true wealth equation looks like this. Income plus savings rate plus time plus investment growth equals wealth. Notice something interesting? Only one part of that equation involves investing. The rest involves behavior. This means anyone can improve their financial future immediately. You can increase income, you can improve savings, you can reduce unnecessary expenses, you can extend your investment timeline. You don't need to wait for the perfect investment opportunity. You can start improving the equation today. And that's empowering, because it shifts the focus away from luck. Too many people believe wealth is reserved for a select few. But when you study financially successful individuals, you often discover ordinary habits: consistent saving, intentional spending, long-term thinking, continuous learning, patience. These habits aren't glamorous. They don't generate headlines, but they generate results. And results are what matter. Chapter 10. The hidden advantage of small beginnings. There's something fascinating about starting with just $100. It teaches lessons that larger amounts often don't. When you begin small, you're forced to focus on process instead of outcome. You learn discipline. You learn consistency. You learn patience. You learn emotional control. These skills become incredibly valuable later. Because managing $100 successfully prepares you to manage $10,000. Managing $10,000 prepares you for $100,000. And managing $100,000 prepares you for even greater wealth. Many people think money management starts after they become wealthy. In reality, wealth management starts before wealth arrives. The habits come first, the money follows. And that's why the first $100 matters so much. Not because of its size, but because of what it represents. A decision, a commitment, a declaration that your future deserves investment. Every wealthy investor started somewhere. Every portfolio began with a first contribution. Every success story began before the success existed. The difference is that some people kept going, and others stopped. The question isn't whether the blueprint works. History has already answered that. The question is whether you'll stay committed long enough to experience the results yourself. Because the journey from $1 to $100,000 isn't built in a single day. It's built through thousands of days. One decision at a time, one investment at a time, one step at a time. And eventually those steps become something remarkable.
Chapter 11. The Story of Two Futures. Right now, there are two versions of your future. The first version looks very familiar. Years pass. Income rises. Expenses rise with it. Life gets busier. You keep telling yourself you'll start investing later. Next year. After the promotion. After the debt is gone. After things settle down. But things never truly settle down. Life always presents another reason to delay. Another excuse. Another distraction. And before you know it, 10 years have disappeared. Then 20. One day you wake up and realize the greatest opportunity wasn't a stock you missed. It was the time you allowed to slip away. Now let's look at the second future. In this version, you start today. Not with thousands of dollars, not with perfect knowledge, not with ideal circumstances. You start with what you have. You invest consistently. You learn as you go. You make mistakes. You adjust. You continue. Years pass. The numbers begin growing, slowly at first, then steadily, then surprisingly. One day you check your account and realize something incredible. The money you've been investing for years is now producing meaningful growth on its own. The machine is working. The effort you made years ago is finally becoming visible. And suddenly you understand something that most people never experience. The greatest rewards often belong to those who were willing to wait. The difference between these two futures isn't luck. It's a decision. A decision that can be made today.
Chapter 12. What the wealthy understand about time. Ask most people how to become wealthy, and they'll talk about money. Ask wealthy people, and many of them will talk about time. Because eventually, successful investors realize something profound. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. If you lose money, you can earn more. If you waste time, it's gone forever. This is why investing early is so powerful. You're not simply investing money. You're investing time. And time is the ingredient that makes everything else possible. Imagine two people. One invests $500 per month starting at age 25. The other invests $1,000 per month starting at age 40. The second person is investing twice as much. Yet the first person often ends up with more wealth. Why? Because time was working for them. Time was compounding their contributions. Time was multiplying their growth. Time was creating opportunities that money alone couldn't create. This is one of the most counterintuitive lessons in finance. The amount matters, but the timing matters even more. Every year you delay has a cost. Not because you're losing money today, but because you're losing decades of future growth. And that's why the best time to start was years ago. The second best time is today. Chapter 13. The myth of the perfect investment. Many people spend years searching for the perfect investment, the perfect stock, the perfect strategy, the perfect market entry point, the perfect opportunity. And while they're searching, they never begin. Ironically, this pursuit of perfection often becomes the biggest obstacle to progress. Because wealth isn't usually built through perfect decisions. It's built through consistent decisions. Think about the most successful athletes, the most successful entrepreneurs, the most successful creators. None of them succeeded because every decision was perfect. They succeeded because they took action consistently. The same principle applies to investing. A good plan executed consistently beats a perfect plan that never gets implemented. You don't need to know everything before you begin. You don't need to predict the future. You don't need to become an expert overnight. You simply need to start. Because experience teaches lessons that research never can. The market will teach you patience. It will teach you discipline. It will teach you emotional control. And those lessons become part of your financial foundation. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Chapter 14. When you reach $100,000. Let's fast forward. Imagine you've reached your first $100,000. Take a moment and think about what that means. For some people, it's a dream. For others, it feels impossible. But for those who remain consistent, it eventually becomes reality. Now here's the surprising part. When you reach $100,000, something changes. Not just financially, psychologically. You begin seeing the world differently. You stop viewing money purely as something to spend. You begin viewing it as a tool, an asset, a worker, a resource that can help create future opportunities. You understand delayed gratification. You understand long-term thinking. You understand the value of consistency. These lessons are worth far more than the money itself. Because once you've learned how to build $100,000, you've learned skills that can help you build far more. The process becomes repeatable. The habits become automatic. And wealth creation becomes a lifestyle instead of a goal. That's why the first $100,000 is so important. It's not the finish line. It's proof that the system works. Chapter 16. The real definition of wealth. Most people think wealth is about luxury. Expensive cars, designer clothes, massive houses, private jets. But true wealth looks different. True wealth is options. It's having choices. The choice to leave a job you dislike. The choice to spend more time with family. The choice to travel. The choice to pursue meaningful work. The choice to help others. Money itself isn't freedom. What money buys is freedom. And that's an important distinction. Because if your goal is simply to impress other people, you'll never have enough. There will always be someone with a bigger house, a nicer car, a larger portfolio. The comparison never ends. But if your goal is freedom, the game changes. You're no longer competing with everyone else. You're building a life aligned with your own values. And that's where wealth becomes truly meaningful.
Chapter 16. The moment everything finally clicks. For many investors, there's a specific moment when everything finally makes sense. It's not when they make their first investment. It's not when they earn their first return. It's not even when they hit a major milestone. It's when they realize wealth was never about getting rich quickly. It was about becoming financially stronger over time. They realized the process itself was the reward, the discipline, the patience, the consistency, the confidence that comes from knowing they're building something meaningful. And once this mindset develops, everything changes because they stop chasing shortcuts. They stop chasing hype. They stop looking for miracles. Instead, they trust the process. And that's when wealth often accelerates, not because the strategy changed, but because their behavior changed. Conclusion: the choice is yours. Let's return to where we started. Imagine I hand you $100. What happens next? For most people, that money disappears. A meal, a purchase, a temporary pleasure, and then it's gone. But for a small percentage of people, that same $100 becomes something much larger. Not because they're smarter, not because they're luckier, not because they have secret information, but because they understand one simple truth. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary outcomes. The first $100 isn't about money. It's about a decision to think differently, a decision to prioritize the future, a decision to build rather than consume. And while $100 may seem insignificant today, every great financial journey begins with something small. Every millionaire made a first investment. Every successful portfolio started at zero. Every wealth-building story began before the wealth existed. The question isn't whether the blueprint works. History has already answered that. The question is whether you'll take the first step. Because 10 years from now, you'll either be grateful that you started today, or you'll wish you had. And that choice belongs entirely to you. So if you have $100, don't focus on what it can buy today. Focus on what it can become tomorrow. Because the journey to $100,000 doesn't begin with a fortune. It begins with a decision. And that decision can start right now.